And Phil is
I'm
going
ready.
to, your friend Phil is going to introduce you to our members, and go ahead, Phil.
Thank you, Joe. I'm very happy to have this honor to introduce Citizen of the Year 3 years ago. Dudley Williams' passionate commitment to education is well known. His long-term efforts have served our community. Some 25 years ago, as a parent of a child in the Stanford system, when proposed funding cuts threatened, as always, the preschool program, encouraged by friends and colleagues, he ran for a seat on the Stanford School Board, served for 3 terms, twice as board president. In addition, he served on the Stanford Planning Board, more recently on the Stanford Board of Finance. He's also on many other organization boards, including the Avon Theater, the Ferguson Library. Presently, he is President and CEO of the Mill River Collaborative. He recently transitioned into the nonprofit sector. And prior to this move, he had a 29-year career in media and entertainment and business. Most recently, he retired from GE Asset Management as the Senior Vice President of Citizenship and Diversity. In addition, Dudley has held executive and leadership positions at the Connecticut Department of Education, Simon & Schuster, and Time Incorporated. For the past 28 years, Dudley Williams and his wife, Juanita James. Juanita is very active in the community as well, as many of you know. They've lived in North Stamford, where they raised their son, Dudley III. It's a great honor to introduce Dudley.
Thank you, Phil. Good morning, everyone. It's an honor for me to be here. Phil and I talked a little bit about this, and we decided that it might be best if I gave a little overview and some history of Mill River, and then we could sort of segue into a conversation about the nonprofit community's reaction to the and response to the Black Lives Matter movement. So if that's all right with everyone, that's how I'll proceed. Okay. I'm going to try to do this shared screen. Like the rest of us, I'm just getting used to dealing with Zoom. All right, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Great. All right. I think public places are important, and Mill River was an attempt by many in the city to create a powerful public place, green space in downtown Stamford. For many years, the lower part of the Ripperwan River was a center for grist mills and other industry, and to the point where that section of what is actually the Ripperwan River became known as the Mill River. The first idea for creating a park in downtown Stamford was developed as part of the first master plan that was done for the city of Stamford by Herb Swan in 1929. And it called for a creation of a park along the Mill River section of the Ripperwarm River, as not only for the creation of green space, but as a significant flood mitigation plan. The first master plan was done in 1929, probably 6 months before the crash, and that plan and any idea of building a park sort of collected dust until 1996, when shortly after Dan Malloy became mayor, a group led by the League of Women Voters and some others in the city met with Mayor Malloy and made him aware of the master plan, but in particular, the idea that we could create and should create a park in downtown Stamford. In 2002, the Mill River Collaborative was formed. Mayor Malloy reached out to the Trust Fund for Public Land and some other entities in terms of trying to figure out how was the best way to do an undertaking like this. And the trust advised that the establishment of a public-private partnership would be the best way to get an undertaking like this off the ground. And the Central Park Conservancy is sort of our local sort of standard, but if you look around the nation, most urban parks have some sort of conservancy that is responsible for the overall maintenance and development of parks, because increasingly it became clear that municipalities couldn't do an adequate job on their own. For many years, Mill River Park, such as it is, looked like this, a concrete canal that was not particularly well kept. Juanita and I moved here in 1989, and this is what Mill River looked like. I mentioned the flooding issue in 1938 and 1955. There were major floods in Stamford. This is at the same section. I think this was the 55 flood. This is 1938. We're actually looking at we're on West Main Street, and if you see me on the left-hand side of the picture, that is that's the Purple Bridge. When you talk to people who've been in Stamford for a while, one of the things that they talk about in terms of the old Mill River was skating on the river in the winter, and it's one of the reasons, one of the big motivations why we put in a ice rink in the new park. So this is the before. Pictures taken shortly before the work on redirecting the river and building the park. I always found it odd that some of you may remember that shopping cart that sat in the river for years on end. I could never understand why no one cleaned it up, but that was the before. The collaborative was formed, and the mission and vision for the collaborative was the establishment of a world-class urban park in the heart of Stamford that serves as both an oasis in city life and a vibrant, diverse green space that inspires sound environmental practices and learning. And here's just a depiction of the master plan. On the left is the main section of the park, the 12-acre section. And on the right is a larger view that envisions a greenway that will eventually stretch from Scousey Park all the way down to Harbor Point. The restoration started in 2011. It was a major undertaking with supervised by the Army Corps of Engineers. It was, and it took a lot of work. Among other things, there were about 1,000 feet of concrete walls that had to be removed, several dams that were removed to actually have the river flow, and we had to dig a little over 18 feet to get to the original, riverbed. If there was, during the excavation, there were 2 entire dumpsters that were uncovered once they did the digging. I mean dumpsters as in the kind that go on, tractor trailers. There was a complete car engine and the parts of several vehicles that were I think people used to just dump things there in the bottom of what was the old river canal. And again, the restoration work started in 2011. The east side of the park opened in 2013. And this is the after. So it's a huge difference. And in addition to the creation of this beauty in the park, we actually lowered the floodplain, and there are a host of properties along Washington Boulevard and nearby that were taken out of the floodplain and actually could forego having to have flood insurance because of the opening up of the river and the creation of the park. The first big capital project in the park was the creation of the playground, which is about to be rebuilt. But this was a community effort. Long before I had any sort of professional association with the collaborative, I was still an employee at GE. We were part of a volunteer effort to build, to construct the park. We had over 1,500 volunteers who worked in the driving rain over 2 weekends to put most of this together. We really wanted to do something that would, we wanted the first big project to do something that would be a direct benefit to the citizens on the west side, and actually serve as an entrance into the park. The next project, of course, was a creation and the landscaping of the 12-acre main park section. And then the third project was the construction of the Brownstein Selkowitz Carousel Pavilion and the David and Marion Nissen Carousel. The building itself is, I mean, the design of the building was such that we wanted all of it to face out into the park. So all the mechanics and things like that are on the other side of the building. Those doors that you see open, so it's very much an open air facility. Part of the philosophy in terms of construction of buildings in the park is we don't have any artwork, statues and things like that in the park. And there was a decision made that the buildings that are erected in the park should serve as works of art. This building actually has been recognized and was featured at the Smithsonian's Building Museum in Washington for its use of natural wood for timber as actual design elements. Those pillars that you see in the building they're not decorative; they're structural, and the building was cited for its unique use of timber in actual construction, which is environmentally a lot better. Inside the carousel, that's just shows the eating and recreation area. The actual carousel has 30 hand-carved wooden figures. The actual figures were selected by children in the area. We had a It's My Park Day early on in the opening of the park, and the 30 horses and other animals were selected by kids at that festival. 2 years ago, the Stephen Alexander Cohen ice skating rink and fountain opened up. The fountain is 9,000 square feet. It is actually the rink is the rink is 9,000 square feet. It's actually, the actual ice surface is larger than Rockefeller Center. It was purposely built to be an ice center as opposed to an ice rink, and it was designed, the Cohens wanted an ice facility that would be solely for recreational use, as there's almost every other ice surface in town is dominated by by hockey use, and it was important to them that that we have a skating facility that was just for recreational skating. It's another area view of the fountain transformed to the ice rink. The park, in terms of a public space, was recognized by the American Planning Association in 2018 as one of the great public spaces in America. It's only the third time that a public space in Connecticut has been so recognized, which we're very proud of. It is unique in America that you had a municipality that actually created a significant amount of new green space. In most cases, in cities around the country, the exact opposite is happening. A little bit about the operations of the park. The Stanford Parks Department does not operate Mill River. The collaborative is responsible for doing that. The collaborative actually has a contractual agreement with the city for both the development and maintenance of Mill River Park. The collaborative staff takes care of all of the landscaping, all of the horticultural work, and a good deal of the security, although that we work very closely with the Stanford PD. But all the maintenance in terms of snow plowing and things like that is done by collaborative staff or outside contractors that are hired by the collaborative. And we get about a third of our operating funds from the city. The rest we have to raise privately. In addition to actually running the park, it's green space, we also have a significant amount of programming that goes on. That's part of the responsibility of the collaborative. We've got a 4th grade science program that we're partnering with now 8 of the elementary schools in Stanford, serving over 600 kids. They visit the park twice as part of their environmental science program, and our education staff go in to visit the schools twice during the winter, and the kids are out in the park during the spring and summer. We have a high school internship program. Normally we have between 18 and 20 kids who participate in that program. They're usually high, middle, or high school students. This year, because of COVID, we had to cut back to 11. we make a point of trying to get kids. We just don't take the the brightest kids or the kids with the top GPAs, but we wanted to have kids who may not have been exposed to a environmental space, and who show an interest in working and getting involved and learning, and kids who live in the neighborhood. And it's been a great program. We've been doing it for 6 years now, and this past summer, for the first time, we had kids who were two young people who were when they were in high school, were in the program, who came back as assistant counselors, and then they're in college now, which was a great thing to have. We also do a lot of programming around youth, the Halloween festival, the Indian Independence Day, bird watching. There are a lot of activities that go on in the park on a regular basis. Last year, we had the Connecticut Ballet perform in the park outdoors. It was one of the first times they've done that in Fairfield County. And we've got, as you can see, a significant response. And we do fitness programming throughout the week, and we have over 700 participants each week in our outdoor fitness programs. This is just some examples of other activities we have during the fall and winter. We have horse-drawn carriage rides. And the park has become a magnet for all sorts of musical festivals, Oktoberfest, and it's also become a local meeting place for protest and other community gatherings. The picture on the right is from the Women's Day March a couple of years ago. This is the Indian Independence Day festival. In addition to, as part of what we do at the park, we have the opportunity to hire a number of local kids to help serve in the staff, to run the carousel, to host and manage our birthday parties and other events at the carousel. When the rink is open, we probably have more than 25 young people who are employed in the park, and it's a very nurturing environment with them. That it's just not a matter of that they're having jobs, but we're involved with what they're doing with their lives. So we're involved in school, and we're writing, we're helping with college applications and writing references and things like that. But it's been a great source of employment and just support for the young people on the West Side. And just to go over briefly some upcoming projects, we will start work shortly on the expansion of the Greenway south of Tressa Boulevard to Greenwich Avenue. The first work will be on the east side, on the west side, restoring that park area, putting in new sidewalks, and restoring the riverbed. We've got a grant from the National Fish and Wildlife Federation. It was part of FEMA Sandy recovery money to help restore the riverbed on the west side. This is a picture of that work. This is a depiction of what the bottom half of that greenway will look like. The bottom of the picture is Greenwich Avenue. We're going to be installing new horseshoe pits and a bocce court. Putting in new benches and other walkways, and this is sort of a map of that area. And we will break ground shortly on the Whittingham Discovery Center, which is going to be an environmental science center in the park right next to where the skating rink is. Just to give you orient, you can see the rink, the park, the building will have, you'll enter from across from Columbus Park, and the black square 1010 is at the rear of the building. The Discovery Center will have museum quality hands-on exhibits, and it'll be free. And included in the center will be there'll be a cafe, a multi-purpose room, and 2 classrooms. This is the elementary classroom, and there'll be a high school lab as the second classroom. It's just an aerial view, just to give you a sense of orientation. And the other project that will get underway in the spring is the renovation of the Mill River playground. It'll stay in the same area, but we're going to switch out and install all new equipment. One addition will be the installation of a splash pad, which will be what we have called zero entry. So it'll be ADA accessible, so anyone will be able to use it. And we're also going to be installing restroom facilities. Those are 2 buildings. They're actually topiary structures that will, the design was a result of a design competition. And so there'll actually be restroom facilities there, unique looking restroom facilities with skylights that will glow in the dark. And the economic impact of the redevelopment or the development of Mill River has been significant. And the list of buildings on the left are either new construction or significant renovations that have taken place since the redevelopment of Mill River started. This is more about just the economic impact of parks in the city. The High Line in New York City, they calculate that there's been more of over a 20% increase in property values within 2 blocks of the park once the park was created. Definitely property values and valuations have increased in the area along the park. The collaborative, a big part of what the collaborative does is raise money. We've been able to raise $28 million in private funds and at least $19 million in state and federal funds that we've been able to obtain to make all this possible. And I don't think, to the point I raised earlier, I don't think this would have been possible in terms of the amount of money raised and the time frame in which the work was done if this was simply a city capital project. So, I think, we're proud of Mill River. I think the city is proud of the park. I think it's important, as I said before, public spaces are important, and I think the creation of Mill River has added a great deal to the livability of downtown Stamford. When you think about before the creation of the park, there was less than 2 acres of actual green space in downtown Stamford, and it's a big difference now. And the recent pandemic has really been an indication of, the park's been packed, and it's been that way for months. And we hear all the time people saying, what a blessing it's been to have the park available. So I think it's been a investment well worth the effort. So with that, Phil, I don't know whether you want to take questions, if there are any questions about the park, and then I'm happy to talk a little bit about the nonprofit reaction around, around Black Lives Matter.
Okay, this is Joe Dudley. I would suggest, because if we open it up to questions now, we'll probably spend the rest of the allotted time only on questions.
Okay.
So why don't you go into the second part, and we'll hold discussion and questions on Mill River till the end. So you got another 20 minutes or so. I mean, we can run over a few minutes if that's okay with you.
That's fine. And the second part of the conversation, I don't have slides or anything. I just wanted to talk a little bit about what has happened and how.
So if you can unshare the screen and just adjust your camera. Perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, why don't you go ahead, and then we'll like I say, hold any questions until after your talk, unless you want in this part to do a proactive. It's up to you.
I'm fine either way. I mean, we can. Well, why don't we?
Why don't you start off, and then we'll open it up. I think we won't get distracted.
It's interesting that there was a groundswell of activity after the murder of George Floyd. I remember at a board meeting of the collaborative, which took place shortly after, I was asked whether the collaborative was going to issue a statement in response to what took place in the Black Lives Matter movement. And I actually said that, I didn't know whether it was necessarily appropriate for a park to, to issue a statement like that. We weren't a social service agency. But I got tremendous amount of pushback by members of the board that they thought it was very important to sort of make our position known. So we did come up with a statement. We were sort of bombarded with various organizations who wanted to do different demonstrations in the park. Well, they wanted to do demonstrations, and working with the Stamford Police Department, in many cases, they felt Mill River was the best place to have those demonstrations. So there were a number of different marches that started at, you've probably read about some of them that started at Mill River, that went to the government center, or went to the Stamford Police Station. But the park was a real gathering point in terms of people wanting to get together. Phil mentioned earlier, I'm on the board of the Ferguson Library. Matter of fact, until a couple of weeks ago, I was, this past year, I was chair of the board. And the many people on the library staff felt it was important that the library work with the community in terms of crafting sort of a reaction around, what took place. So the library was a focal point when the day that they actually did the Black Lives Matter mural on Broad Street. The library was sort of headquarters for the program that took place around those activities. And I think in most cases, many, whether it's in Spirica, the library, Boys and Girls Club, nonprofits, particularly organizations that had a strong community aspect, felt it was very important that they needed to take an active role in the protests and sort of making it known that they were not oblivious to what was going on. And it was interesting because the Black Lives Matter movement, such as it is not a formal one in terms of identifying someone who is clearly the president or chair or anything like that. It was really kind of a grassroots effort, for better or for worse. And I say that because what started off as what I think is was a legitimate reaction of outrage to excess, by the police, turned into to a whole sort of broader agenda around defunding the police and all sorts of other things that give a lot of people pause. But I think there was, as I said, I think there was legitimate outrage about something that was really unconscionable and sort of was a very stark realization that some lives are valued less than others, and as a society we need to react to that. But I think in many cases you had nonprofits who felt compelled to move outside of their mission, so to speak, to be a part of being on the right side of an issue. And from a governance point of view, it was a real challenge for a number of places because, my reaction about what the park should do, many other nonprofits had the same, some people had the same reaction in terms of, is it our place to, get involved in this? And then others felt just as strongly as that it would be unethical, if not immoral, to stay silent while something like this was, was going on. So I think more places than not decided to, to go, to step up and get involved. And I think it's been, for the most part, I think it's been a good thing. I think for organizations like, dealing with youth, like the YMCA and Boys and Girls Club, it was a way for them to demonstrate leadership and teach a lesson in terms of the importance of civic engagement and the idea of protesting, but protesting in a responsible manner, and how you go about, pursuing change, and also demonstrating the young people that, as an organization, you care about them, and because you care, the organization is going to stand up and play a part and have a voice in the public dialogue around these issues. So with that, if there are any questions,
Dudley?
yeah.
Again, guys, use the raise the hand, so we don't have,
Joe, I'm over here.
no, raise your hand on the screen. There's a,
Participant.
And Joe, you'll drive the train on this in terms of
Yeah.
recognizing people? Okay, great.
yeah,
How do you raise your hand on the screen?
Jack, if you hit on participants, down at the lower bottom of the screen, and then the screen comes up, there's a whole bunch of
Yeah,
options on the bottom, and there's a blue hand that you
Yeah.
can raise. But
okay.
in the meanwhile, why don't you ask your,
I raised my blue hand.
okay, yeah, I see it.
You
Okay.
see my blue hand?
Yeah, and we'll call you out of order, so go ahead and,
Okay.
what's your question?
Dudley?
Yes,
Dudley,
Jack.
nice hearing from you.
It's good to see you.
I was wondering whether you are, this is the park I'm talking about. Are you going to put direction signs in the park? I get on the park, like for instance on Mill River Road, next to the Hampton Inn,
Mhm.
and I want to walk a mile. I don't know what a mile is, and when you get up to the street, you come back down again. There's a road that goes to the left, and where does that road go? And which one goes to Tressa Boulevard? I was just wondering.
We're in the process of redoing all of the, the signage, because it's actually changed. The signage that's up there now was part of the original construction. A lot's been added to the park since then. So we hope to have that. That's not an inexpensive proposition to do that properly. We're actually working with the city on it in terms of, there's a whole wayfinding initiative that the city has underway. Thomas Madden, Director of Economic Development, is sort of spearheading that. But we hope to have new signage up in the spring of next year. But one thing you point out that I don't think it was part of the plan was distance, mileage and things like that. And that's I hadn't thought about that, but that's not a bad idea. And I'm going to circle back with our staff to see whether that's something that could be included. Because frankly, I hadn't thought about that, and that makes a lot of sense.
Well, thank you. You see, if I tell my wife I'm going to walk a mile, I don't want to go more.
It's where the camel, it's when the camel stops, that's when you can get, you get hit the mile.
Well, and they have it in other, in other parks, and I know
Cove Island has one.
Yeah, Cove Island has it, and I know,
Scalzi.
when I was Scalzi, I just know that rink is a half,
Yeah,
it's a half mile.
everybody knows
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But it's nice to have it up there because strangers come in, they don't know. And you,
No,
there's a mile. I'll do that today.
No, it's a good suggestion.
Before we get Larry, where do you park?
Where do you park in the park?
There's no parking lot solely, associated with the park. You can park at the, the Main Street lot, the Target lot. It's in some ways, in that regard, your typical urban park, and that is, it's not a, we don't have a parking lot. We didn't want to use valuable downtown space, just for more, for more parking. And, I often tell people that the walk from the Target, from the Target lot to, to inside the park is no more than the walk from the lot at Cove Island to the pavilion or other sections of the park.
Thank you. Okay, Larry. Hold.
Thank you for a great presentation of Read the Park and also your commentary on the NGOs on the Black Lives Matter movement. Well thought out and well presented. What is the annual operating budget for the park?
It's a little over 2 million.
Thank you.
Okay.
Phil, unmute yourself, Phil.
I just want to call to everyone's attention. Whoops, does that work? Being white in America is not needing to state your life matters. And when your life matters, you have power. And this is an ad in Time magazine by Procter & Gamble, as you can see on the bottom. And I was deeply touched by that because it was an explanation briefly that explained to me what Black Lives Matter is all about. Because as a person of privilege, being white, I never have to state that my life matters. I remember when some teenagers got into a problem with police, not locally, it became national news. And I then learned about this concept in Black families of having the talk, because how to deal if stopped by the police when you're driving a car. And that actually was the incident that I was referring to, was a police stop that turned violent. So I'm gonna bring up the elephant in this particular big room with all of our faces here and say to you, Dudley, that we would love to have more community involvement, and we haven't been successful so far. We did have one African-American member a couple of years ago, but eventually he stopped coming, I guess because he was the only one. Do you have any suggestions of where we could reach out to get some folks who might be interested in joining with us geezers every Thursday, where we have great speakers like you?
Well, it's a good point. I mean, my first suggestion would be to reach out to clergy. I go to church. I attend Bethel AME, and there are a host of senior men in the congregation there every Sunday. Really interesting, engaging men from all sorts of, from all walks of life. And I'd say I see more senior men at church than, together than any other place than, that I am. So I would start there. You raise you talked about the talk, which which I received and have given to my younger brother and then my son, and that's that's a real part of life. I remember years ago driving up to the Cape with a group of friends. As a matter of fact, it was, I don't know, you may have heard a woman mystery writer, Mary Higgins Clark. I was with her two sons and some other guys, and we were going up to her house for the weekend on the Cape, and we were driving her car. It was a Cadillac, and I wasn't driving, but we were pulled over for speeding. And and I was scared to death. And I remember, the cop came, gave us a warning, and it was, asked us where, and, we weren't drinking or anything like that. And, I was, drenched in sweat. And I remember my friend David turned to me and said, "What the hell are you so nervous for?" It's just, we got pulled over, no big deal. And, but for me, being stopped by the police was something that was fraught with danger. And they wouldn't, I don't want to say they were ambivalent to it, but they clearly weren't as, it didn't sort of engender in them nearly the amount of anxiety it did for me. And, that was just I think back on that now, that was just a indication of, very different expectations around what happens if you're stopped by a cop, and what the and what the ramifications might be. And I've been struck a couple of times in the last month or so. I've either been a part of or sort of overheard conversations about this whole incident with George Floyd. And I remember one time, at the gym, and a couple of guys were saying, well, this guy, George Floyd, was a bad guy. He'd been arrested, he'd gotten in trouble, a few times. And they said that as if, that sort of justified, the fact that he wasn't, an honor student and, on his way to seminary, it made it okay for him for what happened. And again, I think it's, I think it's an indication. People may not be conscious of it, but a comment like that just indicates, it's just an indication that lives are valued differently. And if someone's cousin or brother or someone else who may have gotten in trouble in the past, it wouldn't have been okay if they had been, if they had been murdered.
Yeah.
And it's just, we've got we have a long way to go, and the people who are, and you see it, they react almost violently to the notion that there is something like institutional racism that exists, and they expressed outrage that people talk like this. And these are people who, I think in many cases, don't know any Black people, at least in any kind of intimate fashion, and are are in no position to actually speak on the issue, but they just take, they just take offense.
It's true.
Arcady. Arcady, unmute yourself.
Yes. Yeah, I just, Dudley, want to thank you for your presentation. Excellent. And you informed me on things I didn't know about. My question is about Black Lives Matter. You mentioned that this is that this is grassroots organization. But if you go to website of the Black Lives Matter, they ask for dismantling of husband-wife family structure of the community. They ask for defunding the police. They ask for reparation and rations and some nationalization of industry. This is nothing less than the kind of revolutionary demand. Doesn't look like it's a grassroots organization. So what happened to it? Can you express?
I don't, I don't know what, it's not, when I say, it's not a formal organization as in, akin to the Urban League or the NAACP or other organizations like that. And I remember a couple of months ago, we saw posters in the park and online saying that there was going to be a demonstration on a Saturday morning in Mill River Park, and they were going to have speakers and this, and this was the first we heard about it. And I reached out to the police, and because no one had gotten a permit, no one had sort of reached out to anyone about doing this, and we had the hardest time sort of tracking down who was responsible for putting this march together. And we found the person who posted the notice on Facebook, and they said, well, I'm just doing, so-and-so asked me to post this, I'm not involved in all that stuff. And we finally, it took some doing, working with the city and Stanford PD to find out who was quote unquote organizing the march. And we said, we have no problem with you having a march, but there's a process around doing things, and we want it to be safe for the people who are participating and everyone else. So some advance notice and some other preparation would be helpful. And it was clear to me at that point that this was just a bunch of, handful of people who were not particularly organized but wanted to do something, but it wasn't like some organizational structure where there was an organization that could take out a permit or get insurance or do anything like that. So that's what I meant, sort of like in terms of a grassroots organization. And the problem with this is that, I don't know, I can say that I am supportive of Black Lives Matter, but there are a number of things on that you just read off on that website that I don't support. So, I think George Floyd was murdered. I think there is room for police reform in terms of how they go about doing things, but I'm not, I feel I can hold those beliefs and be supportive of Black Lives Matter, and not necessarily, and I don't think it should sign me on for being in favor of reparations or a whole host of other things, a number of other things that you cited. And so, maybe I'm not a card-carrying official member, but I think changes need to be made, but there are a number of issues that that I don't agree with.
Okay.
The unfortunate thing, I think, with a loosely organized group, and I think we've seen it, is that it seems like professional rabble rousers infiltrate that group, and the group intentions starting out are fine, but you have whether it's Antifa or whatever other agendas people have come in and create problems that were never in the minds of the people that were organizing the initial protest, whether it's BLM or any other organization doing something like that.
And it's, it's a challenge. Since I've been at the park, because of just from practical operational issues, I talk a lot to Stanford PD. We work together. I need them for things. So, I've got cell phone numbers and stuff like that. And I talk to these guys, and they, we were talking about the occupation that took place in Latham Park, and there were no Stanford natives who were part of that occupation. And I remember having a conversation with Guy Fort, who is the president of the NAACP, and he said he actually went out to the park to try to get some dialogue with the, with the organizers, and there was no one there that he recognized, and literally almost none of the people, lived in Stamford. So there was just a decision made that they were going to, do something high profile in a city where they thought they'd get, a lot of coverage.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing is that the intent, the original intent was bastardized, so to speak, because of people coming in that had, and that's the unfortunate thing. Lloyd.
Mr. Dudley, I'd like to ask you a question on each of your topics, if I may.
Okay.
One question and then go back to the bottom of the list.
Okay. On the Mill River Park, is there any plans afoot to extend it, to incorporate or join up with the walkway, let's say, along the east bank of Scalzi Park, extending that further up to the Niagara?
You got to Angelo?
Walkway?
Eh?
That was my first.
Yeah, no, there are, as I said, in the presentation, there aren't, right now, there are no plans to go north of Scalzi, but there is a plan to sort of formalize the connection along the river between Scalzi and the beginning of what's now the beginning of Mill River at Broad Street. So there are plans to rebuild to actually build a greenway along the river, sort of, behind or next to Clunan Middle School and J.M. Wright and where Hart School is, to build a greenway along the river there.
All right, my second question.
Lloyd, raise your hand. Go to the back of the line. Dick Fisher.
Dudley, thank you for joining us. It's good. And I'd like to follow up on what Phil has started talking about, and that's the fact that I know the fellow who was a member of our group, African American, and he told me, frankly, that he was there for a couple of years and he felt that he was out of place with not having anybody else who was African American, and he was going to leave. I guess about 2 years ago, a former neighbor of mine who is African American, I asked to come to a meeting, and he came to one meeting and he basically said the same thing. I want to wrap this up into the issue of relationships between blacks and whites in Stamford. Our Temple Bethel has gotten very strong about trying to establish some kind of relationship. We've established a committee. We've had Guy Fort speak to us on a Friday night service. We had another black minister speak to us. But how do you get the integration of blacks and whites when it seems like there is the institutional racism that's here?
It takes work and sort of sometimes going beyond, meeting halfway. There's a discomfort level, and not because necessarily of, racism, but if you're a person of color and you don't have a lot of experience interacting with whites socially, there are a lot of people who are just uncomfortable about it. Some of it's fear, some of, and it, and sometimes it may take an extra effort in terms of going out of your way to encourage people and have them feel comfortable. And the flip side is, often, people of color will complain about an organization being all white and there's no Black participation, whatever. And I often say, well, why don't you go sign up and bring and bring other people with you? I mean, these things, work both ways. I find this a lot in, public life. People will say, well, this committee and that committee and this group doesn't have any minority representation. And so, well, sometimes it takes, I would say to people, you're in a position where you could serve on this board, or you could do X, Y, or Z, or you could get more people to come out to, Board of Education meetings. I was, Phil made reference to my, how I got started in with the Board of Ed, and I was going to a Board of Ed meeting about budget issues, and there were a couple other people of color there, but I was somewhat of an anomaly in being a Black male who was actually, I wasn't an irate mother, but I went to Board of Ed meetings, and eventually enough people said to me, well, you're here all the time anyway, you might as well run and sit on the other side of the table. But it works both ways. But I guess, Dick, I would say that often there are issues of race involved, but sometimes it's just discomfort, and people being uncomfortable on both sides. And it takes an effort to sort of work through that in terms of, one side reaching out more, and then the other side, people just having a bit more fortitude, sticking it out. Professionally and otherwise, I've spent a whole lot of time being the only one in the room. And it's just something, if you want change, it's just something you have to learn to deal with and work at changing.
Thank you, Dudley.
Franco.
Yes, thank you. I would like to ask a question related to the park.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, is incredibly beautiful, the park. Oh. And I would like to suggest, if he has not already decided, to have some sign of a name of a plants that you have all around the park, because it is an incredible richness, beautiful to have all these plants. And it could be an education for the kids who want to say this flower, X name,
yep.
And to have some sense also of a school and to trace when the pollination take place, or when the bees, or something more educational in relation to the names.
That's a good suggestion. Thank you. I mean, we're working on it. I don't know whether you may have, last week there was an article in the Advocate about a garden that is next to 26 Main, the senior housing project there that is sort of cultivated by a bunch of volunteers. It's part of Mill River, but it's been sort of cultivated by a bunch of volunteers who spend a lot of time. It's a beautiful piece of the park, and she has every plant there, labeled. It looks like, you're in the botanical gardens. And there used to be more labels in the, in the main area of the park. We sort of got away from that because they were labeled during the original landscaping. And then since then, so many things have changed and we've sort of fallen down on that job. But that is something that we definitely can pursue. It's a good idea. You're not the first person to mention it, but thank you.
Okay, we're going to have Larry, and I think Franco has another question.
Thank you.
And then I want to save a few moments for Jack Halpern.
Okay, it's Larry here. Dudley, on behalf of the organization, I'd like to extend an invitation to you to join, and also for you to bring your brethren who you know from church in our age group to come along as well. And hopefully we can see you on the next Zoom meeting. We will get an invitation to you from from Steve, and hopefully we can start out by diversifying our membership to include members of your community.
All right, well, thank you. I actually, I become official next month. The November 14th is my 65th birthday, so I will.
I think the
Wow,
age
what an
group
old
is
man.
No,
low.
we started 55, but we have
Oh,
very
really? Oh,
few.
okay.
We have very few 55ers. We may have a few under 65.
Oh, I
but
thought it was 65. So, but anyway, thank you.
yeah, we'd love to have you with us.
Please come next Thursday, and we hope to see you and some of your fellow church-going members.
Okay. Thank you.
Franco,
Yes, I would like to echo this element. First of all, I'm very proud of a group of us to be able to recognize that we have to make an effort to include all the community, whatever creed, color, or origins. Very important. Then I would like also to, in this debate that we have, to realize that the dominant culture is as one particular color. And this dominant culture, of course, creates institutions that are perpetuating that culture. And it is work uphill, and I think all together we must do and to reach, to get a better world for the kids, and along with a better park, where should be a park of a community that reflects everybody that are used. Thank you very much for this opportunity to us to reflect and to be constructive on this idea.
thank you, Franco.
Thank you.
Dudley, thank you for a great presentation. I know, speaking as a former chairman of the Park and Rec Commission, we had to fight for every penny that we can get just to,
So do
to
we.
maintain the status of the parks. And every year we got cut, and you know the story.
Oh yeah, we took $100,000 cut this year. You know, we do get an operating grant from the city, and it was cut by $100,000 this past year, which is, as you know, that's big money.
Yeah, but the private-public partnership does work, and you've shown that with Mill River Park, and no way would the city of Stamford ever been able to do what the collaborative has done. And you know, from that standpoint, thank you, and for your very frank and open comments about the you know, current situation. Yeah, there is a definite need for awareness on all ends. So again, we'd love to see more of you with us, being with us as a member of our group, and certainly we want to diversify throughout the community, and we welcome that opportunity to do that. But before we close, Jack Halpert, calling on you to, off the cuff, give some thoughts about the food bank of Southern Fairfield County.
Well, Joe, you know, and most people, I see we have so many new names in the club, but most of the people knew that in October, because, or beginning in November, we try to put together and collect money for the food bank, for the turkeys and the homeless and everyone else.
Oh no, at the end of tuna,
the
they're
food
really
bank.
good. Philip, make a twist.
What'd you say, Franco?
No, that was somebody speaking over.
Oh.
Okay, go ahead.
So when I got this job where I work Thursday morning and Monday mornings, I wasn't able to come to meetings. Mort Klein took it over and did, I think, a very good job. Now that we're on these virtual things, it has to be on our own. And I don't see where I or anybody else can fit in when we're all virtual. Now, Food Bank just sent out this notice, and the thought I could have is that maybe, Joe, you would have emails go out weekly reminding people with the address, and they can just walk and drop a check off. It's right here in Glenbrook Road, 461 Glenbrook Road, and it's,
That's-
if you could see it, it's a very good group of people. They are challenged by the Connecticut Food Bank, which is up in North Fairfield. And they're the ones who send out a lot of notices, and people give to them, but they're not giving to the local food bank. The local food bank is called the Food Bank of Lower Fairfield County, 461 Glenbrook Road, Stamford, Connecticut. Joe, I don't know, what else would you think
Well,
you would want me to do?
I think, I mean, you've been guiding it for as long as I've been a member of the organization, and Mort has taken over. And we generally collect what, about $1,000?
Oh, we've been as high as 2,000.
Okay.
We do around, you say around 1,000. People bring any amount. They bring cash, they bring $10, they bring $100, all
Okay.
deductible.
The only thing I would suggest, okay, guys, is we'll have it go out in the meeting minutes. Plus, we'll send out probably a special email and make a donation. And I would think the best way is to make it direct to the Food Bank of Lower Fairfield.
Yeah, that's what you make it.
But indicate when you send the check in or bring it in that you're doing it through the Senior Men's Association, so that
We can get credit.
we get credit. Let them know that we're still thinking of them,
Yeah.
as opposed to just letting it drop. So I that would be my suggestion.
Yeah,
And rather than have the money come to if they're going to mail it to me and then I bring it to them, it's just as easy to go directly. Got to
Just
put it in
go
an envelope.
directly or mail it directly. I don't know, maybe a lot of people have received this fundraiser that's going out, but just make sure it's Glenbrook Road and not Connecticut Food.
Yeah.
Jack,
Joe, I would, this is Bob Loop. I would suggest that we have a slide
slide, yep.
Yeah.
every week regarding this for the rest of the year or whatever.
Yeah, the slide is great, except that like church bulletins, you see it once and that's it. However, if we do send out an actual email, also, I mean, not one over the other, but send out an actual email, then you can download the email and you have the address and the information in front of us.
Yeah, but
We'll do both, and then we'll try, Jack, if you're ever on, talk it up, or any one of us will talk it up.
One more, I want to make one more statement because I'm sure there are a lot of very smart people in the group, but if you don't know, you should know that the donation laws have been changed, and the amount of money for not itemizing, just taking a standard deduction was double. So a lot of people can't take a standard deduction and can't deduct the donation. But there's a rule that came out the same time that your RMD, required minimum distribution, if you take yours out, you can write a check from that direct to the food bank, and it becomes a full deduction, and it counts as part of your RMD. Now, I know people who paid their temple dues with it. You know, you're allowed to use it as, you're allowed to make your RMD non-deductible. You know what I mean? Because it's now going direct to the food bank. That means you don't pay tax on it.
However, you know, based
you
on that, I
guys-
would suggest you check with your tax
Yeah, but
preparer or
someone should
accountant.
look it up.
Yeah, but that, I've heard about that also.
Good, you should have, but
Yeah. Okay, unless there's anything else, again, Dudley, thank you for a great presentation.
Thank you.
And thank all the members for being here, and stay well, stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll see you next Thursday.
Thank you very much.
Dudley Williams, recruitment manager for the Senior Men's Club.
Thank you very much.
Well,
I can
we'll
always
get 'em
count on
going.
you, Jack.
You know, they always say, if you want, do something, get something done, give it to a busy man.
Right.
Thanks, guys.
Great.
Take care.
Take care, guys. If I get my.
Hello, Ed.